Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
On behalf of the Standing Brothers Show, we'd like to give a warm birthday surprise shout out to the President, Donald J. Trump. Happy 75th birthday to our President, Donald J. Trump. May it be a glorious one. May you have 75 more. May you be reinstalled in August. May you ascend to the White House in a triumphant return. Happy birthday, Donald.
That's all you got?
Happy birthday, Donald.
Happy birthday, Dad.
Stop it, that's weird.
Daddy.
If you too would like a birthday shout out to Hail to the Chief, just let us know. We'll give you a birthday shout out with Hail.
We're not doing that.
I think that'd be great. Oh, you can get a birthday shout out even if it's not your birthday. How about that?
Happy birthday, Donnie. We love you and we miss you.
We do?
I miss him on Twitter.
Yes. I wish I'd added. I wish he could be not so much reinstated or put back in the White House, but just get him back on the Tweety.
Get him back on Twitter.
The Tweety.
I'm surprised he's figured out a way to get back on there. They haven't like just made a new like the Gmail account.
What kills
or a
me,
new like Yahoo email account.
Well, what kills me is the fact that he had all this time to get on a different platform.
He didn't,
and he never did. And he still could get on other platforms. And if he sent out an email, or the Trump blog sent out a link to his account on MeWe or whatever, that site would blow up overnight. Yeah. So it doesn't make any sense why he didn't do that. But anyway, happy 75th birthday to the former president, Donald J. Trump.
Former? Don't you mean he still is president?
Well, I mean, depends on who you ask.
Or is he secretly pulling the strings behind the...
Well, I mean, I kind of wish that were true, given the stories we're going to talk about today, because Biden is globe-trotting the world right now on behalf of the United States, going to G7, going to NATO, meeting with the Queen and Prince Charles, soon-to-be king, once the old lady kicks the bucket. But anyway, welcome back. That's a long intro. Welcome back to the Standing Brothers Show. Jacob and I here yet again on a Monday, going through the news. You can follow us on the Tweety and all that stuff. You'll see all that down below. We don't need to keep mentioning that. But anyway, welcome back. Jacob, how's your week going? How's the start to thy week?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good.
Good. That's it? Just pretty good?
I mean, just pretty good. Just okay.
Just okay?
No, it actually has been really good. I've had a good week. Great weekend. Went to a gun show Saturday.
Hey-o.
That was fun. Man, things have gotten expensive.
Mm.
Couple things I was looking for I didn't really find was I was looking for some free Kyle stuff, and there was no free Kyle Rittenhouse stuff. I was kind of mad and disappointed. I know the kind of crowd that goes to these gun shows, a little bit more of your conservative, a little more of like your boomer cons. Saw some walking contradictions. Literally saw there was a Georgia Gun Owners Association, whatever, was there. One of the guys in the booth had a Blue Lives Matter hat on, and then a From My Cold Dead Hands shirt.
Yeah, self-awareness.
I wanted to say something, but I'm like, nah. This guy
it.
Was like 70. He
doesn't even know where he's at.
He doesn't. He's like Biden.
So my weekend was pretty abysmal, because not only did the Lightning lose on Sunday, the Yankees are on yet again another 4-game losing streak.
I just don't want to.
So, but yeah, not to labor on the Yankees anymore because it's kind of a broken record.
I feel it's always bad news with them. I feel that there's never just like, wow, we had a fantastic string of games.
Yeah,
like you'll get
You get one game
You'll
that's
get
good.
one game that they play amazing, and then you're like, oh, is this chance going to turn around? And everyone's like, hold your breath. They might turn around.
Yeah.
And then they'll go get swept by Boston at home, or they'll go get swept by the
Twins.
Twins. No.
Or the
They split the Twins, and they get swept by Philly.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
What was that thing I posted? It was a gif of Kermit the Frog being hung from a fan, and it said when you get swept by the Phillies.
yeah, I saw a video of Giardi and Aaron Boone meeting, I guess, for the first time, and you could tell Giardi was, I guess, it's a 5-second video, but you could tell he was like you took my job, thanks. After the Astros, cheated and the Yankees fired Giardi. But, I mean, I don't know what more it's going to take from Hal Steinbrenner to start firing people at the Yankee organization. Marcus Timmons should not be within a mile of Yankee Stadium, let alone a high school football or a high school baseball team, because something isn't working. If the hitting coach is not producing anything, then he probably needs to be fired. Same with Aaron Boone. Patience has worn thin. Same thing with Brian Cashman. Patience has worn thin. We're not winning, and we're in middle of June, and something needs to happen before.
Well, the All-Star break is right around the corner.
Right.
I mean, we're only a few weeks away from the All-Star break, and that's typically where teams will decide whether
make or break.
make or break. They decide, okay, are we going to go forward, or are we going to be sellers this year and then wait for next year? So, I mean, I don't think the Yankees will be sellers, but
something's gonna happen.
because selling is basically like waving the white flag on the season.
Yeah, you're gonna tank the rest of the season, which I don't necessarily. I don't think it's a good idea for your fan base because we have endured enough this year already, and something's got to happen with like these Stanton profile folks because you can't get paid all this money to not play the outfield. I mean, you're 30 years old, son. I don't care how much weight you can lift, but if you can't play the outfield and then maybe hit sometimes, you're worthless. You're nothing. So maybe lifting all those weights wasn't a good idea. But anyway, none of that really matters because we're talking about international politics, Jacob. We're talking about foreign policy, right?
Ooh.
See that transition from the New York Yankees to foreign policy? That's how we do things here on the Standing Brothers Show. But anyway,
Just right out of left field.
right out of left field. So Biden is at the G7. Now, what's funny about the G7 because if you watch it, closely or just from at a distance, all it is, it looks like it's just a big photo op. And that's largely what it is. It's just a big photo op for all these people to meet together, take
Can
pictures.
you explain what the G7 is for some folks who don't know?
The G7 is like an economic mastermind, like social class, whatever. Where they all get together to discuss how we can further the economic goals of our countries, right? So it's a big meeting, so to speak, where France and in Germany and the United States and England will all get together and they'll discuss on how we can better improve economic ties with other countries. And notably that I don't think China was allowed and Russia's not allowed. So how can you have some of the biggest countries in the world not be at the G7?
Missing, the other two largest
Right.
economies.
And Russia is a pretty big player in Europe. I don't know if people knew that or not. But anyway,
Just a little bit.
But anyway, so one of the best things about President Trump, being that it's also his birthday today. Happy birthday, Donnie.
Happy birthday, Don.
That he was very critical of G7 and NATO, which we'll talk about NATO a little bit later. But when he would go to G7 or the G20 or whatever, he would always we're getting ripped off by these people. How can we be friendly with these people if they're ripping us off? And what's the deal here, folks? And to some degree, he was right. He was right that that sometimes other countries take advantage of the United States, and it's not just the United States; they take advantage of everybody else. It's kind of what happens, folks. It's kind of how the international foreign affairs works. It's all just one big grab bag. See who can grab the biggest bag. I hope that makes sense. But anyway, so Biden goes to the G7 and he meets with President Emmanuel Macron, the French leader of France, which also is in France. Macron says to Biden, what we need is cooperation. I think it's great to have a U.S. president who is a part of the club. I don't know about you, but I thought an American president is supposed to lead, not be a part of the club. As of course, Biden's like, oh yeah, okay, I agree. So Biden is largely saying America is back at the table. America's back, Jacob. We're back at the negotiating table.
I'm back, baby.
Now, no one has really explained to me what being at the table means. We're back. America's back. No one's explained to me what that means. Because if we're just going to go to these photo ops and take pictures with Boris Johnson and Angela Merkel, or
Angela Merkel.
Merkel and Boris Johnson and Macron and all these other folks, then what's the point? There is no point. It's just one of these things to make us feel good. And the most hilarious part is when they talk about climate change, you're supposed to forget the fact that they all flew here on their own private jets. President Biden flies in one of the biggest planes ever built. I still believe it's a 747, that the Air Force One is. So we're all supposed to forget about that, and we're all going to be lectured to by these, what's her name? That kid from, that's always lecturing everybody about climate change. What's her name? Yeah, Greta Thunberg. You know, these people that have adopted Greta Thunberg as the climate czar, yes, this teenager, we're all going to be lectured to about climate change through her, even though they all have their own private jets and they all have big gas-guzzling SUVs. You will not see Boris Johnson on a bicycle. That's not going to happen. I don't want to see that, nor would I want to see Angela Merkel on a bicycle. I mean, could you imagine that? She's more, I think it'd be better for her to ride in her Mercedes. But anyway, so yes, we are back at the club at G7. And another thing that they always talk about is, well, it's engaged. We got to be engaged with these other leaders across the world. We have these deeply held values here in the G7 that we have to espouse. So, and again, they never explain what those are. Macron goes on to say that I feel a genuine sense of enthusiasm that America was back at the table and fully engaged, Biden said. The bottom line is that I think we've made some progress in reestablishing America's credibility among our closest friends and our values. But these are just photo ops. This doesn't really do anything. And so here's one thing that came out of the G7 that I think is just terrible. And it's not cool, as Derek Zoolander would say.
Cool.
Not cool. So the G7 unanimously, seemingly, is all for imposing a minimum global corporate tax of 15%. Without addressing, I'm reading from an article from the Mises Institute here. So they're imposing a minimum global corporate tax of 50% without addressing all other taxes that governments impose before a business reaches a net profit. That's dangerous. So what they're saying is that all these countries in the G7 have agreed to tax corporations across the board, across all these countries at 15% before they even reach a profit. So if that doesn't sound quasi-Orwellian, if not problematic, you'd be right. The article goes on. Why would there be a minimum global corporate tax when subsidies are different? Some countries have different or no VAT taxes or value-added tax, and the endless list of indirect taxes is completely different. The G7 commit to reaching an equitable solution on the allocations of taxing rights, with market countries award taxing rights at least 20% of profit exceeding a 10% margin for the largest and most profitable multinational enterprises. This entire sentence makes no sense. Opens the door to double taxation and penalizes the most competitive and profitable companies, while it has no impact on the dinosaur loss-making and poor margin conglomerates that most governments call strategic sectors. So what that means is that not only will they have to pay the global minimum 15%, but you're still going to have to pay the 39% here in America. So the U.S. government charges, let's just say, Ford. Let's take the company Ford. The U.S. government is going to charge them 39% as a corporate tax, and then on top of another 15% for the global tax. So, Jacob, you're good at arithmetic. How much is that?
What, 15% plus, what'd you say?
39%.
I'm good. That's what, like 54% or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah.
So half of the income before net profit.
Well, where's this money going for the globals? Is it going to the global trust or something? The global trust, like for his like
I
the
don't.
UN?
I've tried to look into this, and I really can't.
Are all these countries agreeing they're just going to increase the taxes just 15% across the board for all these countries?
From what I understand, this is the G7 is some kind of multinational taxing agency that we're all gonna.
But what are they doing with that money?
I don't know.
So how they got to divvy it up? Does it get
From what
based on contributions?
From what I understand is that I guess it's going to go into a big pool somewhere where they'll use that to fund other things, where they'll use it to fight poverty or something like that.
But who gets to decide that? Who gets to sit there?
Countries. These countries have all unanimously agreed to doing this. So whether or not you get to vote on it here in America, these corporations will still have to pay 15%.
I just don't know where.
It doesn't make any sense, and I don't see this really working out in the long run.
Like that's what I've been trying to do. Looking at this, I've tried to look at. I know that like Janet Yellen's all over this, but I don't know where the money, and I don't know like what's the objective behind this, because typically if a politician wants to raise taxes, there's an objective there. It's like, okay, we're gonna build a road, or we're gonna fund the military, we're gonna do Medicare for all. I mean, fighting poverty, okay, but fighting poverty where? You know, if the United States contributes, let's just say 40% of whatever these G7 taxes are, and then the UK does 10%, does that mean they get to pull out the same money? And if they get to take out the same amount they put in, why not just keep that all in their own federal governments? Like I don't understand what are we gonna be? Is this gonna be like another like UN situation? We just give all this money in there and we don't see any returns from it. It's just taken.
Yeah,
that's what I see this going as. It's just another just like a UN disaster.
But here's another problem with this, is that the global minimum tax rate will not hurt G7 members or large technology giants, but it will devastate small and dynamic countries that need to attract capital and investment who cannot afford to have a tax rate of global leading nations. Losing capital investment will cripple their economy, and the alleged tax revenue benefit of raising the minimum corporate tax will disappear. Not only small and dynamic nations will suffer from this measure, but small and dynamic corporations, because they have less revenues to invest and grow in the future the moment they generate a profit, making them weaker. Therefore, it is a protectionist and extractive measure that benefits the ones who are already rich nations and large multinationals, but disproportionately harms small and rising nations and businesses. So, take a smaller European country that doesn't do as well as France or Germany or Russia or maybe a country like the United States or Canada, right? These countries will be just fine, okay? American corporations can afford to pay these sorts of taxes because they do pretty well, and they get all kinds of subsidies, and they have every which way to Sunday to avoid paying taxes, right? We saw how Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and all these guys were able to basically pay 1% taxes. And I can guarantee you, no matter how high they raise the corporate tax here in America, they don't pay the full amount.
No.
This is well known. Everybody knows this. The thing is that these smaller countries and these smaller companies that are not in France or Germany or the United States, they don't have that access. They don't have that luxury of not being able to pay taxes or have the access to subsidies or things like that. So we have a smaller country, smaller market cap. We have a smaller corporation in a country that doesn't have access to these things. And now you're going to pile this 15% on top. Now these companies in these countries will not have access to capital to grow their businesses, to grow their countries. That is a very vital thing. And that's what people seem to miss. So this is 100% a protectionist thing, right? This is how monopolies get started. This is exactly how monopolies get started. Is that here you have a certain handful of groups of people going to the government, going to the global government, asking for protection from competition. That's exactly what a monopoly is. You don't necessarily get a monopoly out of the free market. It always comes with some kind of government protection and or handout. That was one thing that really made me mad about the latest history special on the Titans that built America. I don't understand how you can accuse William Boeing of creating a monopoly after you gave him the sole contracts to carry airmail. But who cares about that? But anyway, so the article goes on. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development itself has warned that corporate taxes are the most harmful for growth. The evidence from OECD shows that the investment is adversely affected by corporate taxation through the cost of capital. The study warns that corporate taxes rates are a negative effect on firms that are in the process of catching up with the productivity performance of the best practiced firms, so like big name corporations, and concludes that lowering statutory corporate tax rate can lead to particularly large productivity gains in firms that are dynamic and profitable, i.e. those that can make the large contribution to GDP growth. So rising corporate taxes will not reduce the debt burden. And the reality of the budgets and financial positions of most G7 and G20 countries shows that deficits continue to be elevated even in growth periods and after periods of tax increases because government spending rises above all increases. So not only will this lead to maybe fewer jobs and less growth, but more taxes. More debt. More debt, because it doesn't matter how much money that governments bring in, they always spend more. So this isn't going to help anybody. This is just another scheme to keep smaller guys out of competition. And this article goes on for a little bit longer. We will most definitely link to this. And Daniel Lakato, I think is how you pronounce his last name, is great. He has a PhD in economics, and he's a fund manager, and he has a lot of great stuff that he writes on the Mises Institute for Economic Stuff. But yet again, the G7 is just another one of these conglomerates of cronyism, and they're not very laissez-faire. They're not very capitalist. They're not very free market. They're not very America friendly. And this is another thing that I agreed with the America First people about, is that what does the United States benefit out of this? Nothing. The best way to produce productive cooperation from one country to another is just to do commerce with them. You don't need these G7 and G20 events to show that we're friends with each other. No, just you buy our stuff, we'll buy your stuff, and we'll get along. Maybe every once in a while we'll invite Macron over to the White House. We'll have 2 scoops of ice cream. We'll get along. We'll listen to some music, and then maybe we'll hit the peace pipe, and then you're out of here. When Angela Merkel comes over, we'll listen to some Nazi war propaganda. We'll eat some bratwurst, and then we'll drink beer, and then she'll be out of here. And then when Prince Charles comes over, we'll watch the Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson. And, we'll talk about how he secretly wants to kill his mother so he can be king, whatever. It's funny, I was watching a video of when Biden was with the Queen, who is freaking awesome. They were walking through some garden, one palace that was built forever ago. Anyway, so Biden and his wife and the Queen were walking side by side down the walkway. And just a couple steps behind them was Prince Charles, kind of by himself with his hands behind his back. And every time I see Prince Charles in that sort of situation, I always think of that moment in Mrs. Doubtfire when they were at the pool, and after Stu takes the kids and his ex-wife away from Mrs. Doubtfire to go get in the pool. He's like, "What am I doing here? This is beyond obsession." Watching you step in and take away my family.
What am I doing here? This is beyond obsession.
Because he's always like,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Because Prince Charles is always like, how can I kill my mother? That's all that Prince Charles wants for his birthday. Is just a quiet evening to plot the extinction of his mother.
They're like, Charles, make a wish. Okay. Dang it didn't come true.
He opens his eyes. Hello, Charles.
Hello there, Charles. How you feeling? Is your birthday cake very good?
Yeah. So there's a new show that will be coming out about how the birth the royal here in America, and I'm like, I could not care less, because they were talking about how when will this child meet his royal family? Will he meet his nieces and nephews? Will he meet his future uncle and aunts who might become king and queen? When will he meet his grandmother? And like, Prince Charles. When will he meet his grandfather? Yes. Every could you imagine being a kid and looking up and seeing those ears? Could you imagine that? Dumbo. But yes. I hate the royal family. As much as I love Prince Charles and poking fun at him, I hate the royal family.
You're not a big Prince Charles guy?
No,
no. Sorry. You love Prince Charles, not a big royal family guy.
Yeah, I think anything that's owned by the royal family should just be droned. Westminster, get the valuable stuff out first, but then just completely level the place, because
like the crown jewels, get all that out of there.
Yeah, I think that should be put up for auction, and you can only auction with Dogecoins. So if you want to buy the scepter or whatever, you gotta bet, or you gotta offer up Dogecoins. I think that would be hilarious. Here you have the ultimate tradition and heritage being given away in what amounts to literally nothing. So I think that would be, I think that'd be great. But that's all after you have a trial and they're found guilty of all those things. We wouldn't do this out of we wouldn't get very hasty and do this out of just off a whim. But anyway, so yes, that's the G7. What do you think, Jacob?
You mentioned all of the important stuff. I'm just looking at all the memes and all the things that are coming out of it. There's so many videos of Biden just kind of wandering around, looking like a lost child.
Well, he is.
There was one where he was standing. They're outside at some kind of like picnic area, and he was just standing there, just
drooling.
No, just standing there looking like, how kids when they're lost, they just stand there, don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he was doing until Dr. Jill Biden came.
Yes. His nurse.
Yeah, his nurse came and got him. Like, he's like, "Come on, Joe. Come on. No, Joe, this way." I also do find it funny that whenever the cameras are on and whenever they're doing photo ops, they're all doing like the elbow bumps and stuff like that.
There was so much hypocrisy.
And then as soon as the cameras went off, you can see private photos of them just like giving hugs and them like putting their arms around each other. I mean, the hypocrisy is so great. And then, folks, we're only talking about not even a month ago. Biden was still parading around wearing a mask and stuff like that, and now he's not. I'm not sure what changed. I'm not sure what about the virus changed. Because I mean, I'm sure that everyone's in these meetings have been vaccinated.
Yes, they all have.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what changed. It's not like, I mean, everyone in the White House have been vaccinated a long time ago, but he still paraded around in his little theater mask. But he met the Queen of England and he had no mask on and she didn't either. I thought that was kind of funny that, probably the most iconic woman in the entire world, he didn't feel the need to protect her from himself.
Because she's one bad lady, virus or no virus. I think she's gonna be just fine. She's been through far worse than the coronavirus. She's lived through several wars of great magnitude. But yes, what was funny to me about watching the G7, and of course, I think everyone's seen that photo where they're all socially distanced, standing on that platform overlooking a cliff in front of that ocean.
Yeah.
And they're all giving elbow bumps and like shoulder bumps, whatever the heck that is. And to me, it'd be hilarious if Putin was there. He says, "No, I shake hand. Shake hand. No elbow bump, shake hand." I thought that would have been hilarious because yes, Putin is only 5'6" or 5'8". He's not a very tall guy, but he's former KGB. He could probably kill all those people on the stage there because I don't think Angela Merkel would put up much of a fight with his pinky finger. So yeah, the guy projects strength. Speaking of Russia, speaking of projecting strength, and speaking of NATO,
did we mention NATO?
Yes, I said remember I mentioned NATO earlier, so we get to that in a minute. Well, it's been a minute. God, you completely derail every conversation. But anyway,
accomplished.
Yeah, I know it's your sole purpose in life. Anyway, speaking of NATO and Russia and Putin and all this and all that, not only was Biden globetrotting speaking about climate change and the world, but he's also going to the NATO meeting in Brussels. Ooh, everybody say ooh. So the very failed, obsolete NATO strikes again. So Biden is supposed to meet with President Vladimir Putin, and before they met, President Biden and President Putin, I think they met today in the early afternoon before I couldn't see anything on it because we had to record at some point, and I couldn't wait all night to do this. But anyway, so I'm going to watch all that, and I'll probably talk about that Wednesday maybe. But anyway, so before Biden and Putin have their powwow behind closed doors where no one can see what happens, Putin gives an interview to the first Western journalist, I think to ABC, in like 2 or 3 years, which is a big deal. And in this interview, he's talking about how, relations between the U.S. and Russia are at an all-time low. We've hit rock bottom of the barrel, whatever phrase you want to use. Stop! Put the tweety away. Stop it. Please, Jacob. Anyway, let's be serious here, folks. So he does this interview with NBC, and they're asking him questions about Russian interference and election meddling and cybersecurity, claims that they've hacked into United States firms. There's a question about Alexei, what's his last name? Alexei Navalny, whatever.
Yeah, it's some kind of weird.
The opposition leader who was allegedly poisoned by Vladimir Putin. And all these about the Ukraine and all these things. So to me, it is very, very interesting that the moment that we have two leaders on the world stage meeting, one who's the most important, the U.S. president, and probably the third most important person in the world being the Russian president. These two men have access to the 90% of the world's nuclear weapons. So to say that these guys need to have a good working relationship is a very big understatement. These two guys need to be able to work together and get along because, they hold the keys to 90% of the world's nuclear warheads. So before they even sit down to meet with each other, the mainstream media is reporting on how, like, all these things about, like I said, they're projecting these negative things on Vladimir Putin. They're talking about the Russia hacking. They're talking about what they did with the DNC hacking, even though there was no evidence to say that they actually hacked into the DNC. So to me, it's interesting that here we have relations at an all-time low. Here we have the U.S. media and Western media attacking Vladimir Putin before these two even go sit down. And then the fact that Biden and Putin will not have a joint press conference. Biden said that, I'll say what I think would happen, he'll say what he thinks happened, and we'll go from there. Now, is that because Biden doesn't want to get caught in a slip-up? Because, he has many gaffes, and they're quite hilarious? Or is that because maybe he doesn't trust the Vladimir Putin? Maybe he's not confident in his ability to verbally and conversationally combat with the former KGB agent. Or maybe, just maybe, they want some tension between the two. Now, of course, Biden has been saying, as too with China, that he's not looking for confrontation. He's not looking for problems with these two. But at the same time, the third arm of the White House, being the U.S. media, is saying all of these things. There's another thing I wanted to mention. I can't remember what it is now. So, I don't know what to make of this. I don't understand. Now, no, don't get me wrong. Is Vladimir Putin a bad guy? Absolutely. He is an autocratic leader that has killed, I believe, that has done bad things to his people. You see what he's done with silencing journalists, potentially silencing opposition leaders to himself. The way that he runs his country is not good. I would not say that he has his country, every person in his country at heart, their best interests at heart. He's an autocratic leader, and he's a quasi-dictator. All of those things are true. But that doesn't mean that every time you go to meet with the guy, you bring up all the dirt. Right? So let's say you want to go do business with somebody, right? Let's say Jacob, let's say your corporation AZ and I'm corporation ABC, right?
Yeah.
Now, Jacob's corporation has been accused in the past of fraud and abusing their customers and abusing their workers, but they've changed. Maybe they're a little different. None of those claims can be backed up by a lot of facts. So would it be wise for me, Corporation ABC, who is the morally upstanding, upright corporation, to come in and say, before we sit down and do a deal, Jacob, we're going to bring up all the things you've done wrong? Would that kind of, I don't know, put a good footing forward as to meeting with someone?
Oh, absolutely not. But then also you got to remember that so your corporation, or in this case Biden, is not exactly clean either.
There it is. Thank you for mentioning that.
You're not exactly a clean. We're not exactly a clean country like we have all of our P's and Q's in a row. America's Biden literally ran on the fact that we have a fractured nation, that there's distrust in the democratic system, that we were led by a dictator, that white supremacy is the greatest threat. The fact that him and his vice president's words were that, you have black people being killed in the streets by police officers. So you're going to go to a guy who, as Joe said, I don't disagree anything what Joe said. Putin's not a bad dude. Or sorry, he's not a good dude. And Russia is not exactly a bastion of
freedom.
Yes, liberty and freedom. America's not much anymore either. But to buy a mirror when you're going to these rooms, is there valid criticism for the way that Putin's ran his country? Sure, absolutely. But if you're trying to get on the man's good side and you're trying to work things out, don't go up there just lecturing him about how bad your country is. Biden did this with President Xi Jinping of China, and the Chinese. He's not the president of China.
Well, he's the chairman or
whatever the chairman of the Communist Party there. He said the same thing I'm saying. He said, what are you talking about? You got to get your nation, get your house in order before start accusing other nations of what they've been doing wrong. So this is just Biden trying to play strong to the base and say, we're going to hold Russia accountable because, the last guy was basically best friends with Russia.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of this stems from, is that they hated Trump so much.
Yeah.
I think, was it Keith Olbermann or no, it was, what's his name? John Brennan, I think it was one who had said that Trump's actions at Helsinki in 2018 were treasonous. Because what Trump said is that he didn't necessarily believe his own intelligence community telling him that Russia hacked the election. He said, well, I think what Putin's saying is true. They didn't do it. So how dare you not take the word of your own spy agency versus their spy agency, who are both horrible, horrible historical liars? So how can you believe any one of them? But anyway, so the left and the progressives and the people that voted for Biden hate Russia, not just because they don't like what Russia does as a country, but because it's some way connected with Trump. So Biden has to be the opposite of Trump. Trump was trying to be the one that was going to be trying to be, let's use one of their words, inclusive with Russia and China. Biden has to do the opposite now. Now he has to be the big tough guy, even though Biden isn't all there. And I don't think Biden really knows how to be tough without dropping bombs on brown people or starting wars in the Middle East. So it just looks so phony. It looks so, I don't know, just weak.
There was that Time magazine cover that came out, where there's a picture of Biden in his aviators, and then a picture of Putin in reflection, and it was like going to confront him or something like that, or like going to hold Russia accountable. And Glenn Greenwald was like, "Dang, this is stupid." that was his response to it.
I want to know, how exactly are they going to hold them accountable?
That's what I tweeted out. I said, "What's he gonna do? Like drool on him to sleep? Is he gonna nuke Moscow? So release Alexei. No. Okay, that's it. We're nuking you.
Yeah.
Like, it's seriously. Whenever you have these two countries who are militarily elite and they can take each other out in a matter of hours, the whole world out in a matter of hours. Both these men at the push of a button could end human existence immediately. What are you gonna do? Like,
they've already put sanctions on Russia.
Biden, what are you gonna do? You gonna put more? Are you gonna put more sanctions on him? I know that there was. We watched that little bit of the interview on the way home from work today, and the one NBC guy was saying something about the recent cyber attacks that have been going on in America. I think there was the one on the Colonial. Was that Russian or was that?
Well, it's alleged that it was a Russian hacking group.
Yeah.
That may or may not have ties to the Kremlin.
Okay. And then there was the one that attacked one of the meat packing plants or something like that.
Yeah.
So some of the kind of
and
infrastructure
then
attack.
last week, the State Department and other corporations here in America went offline for I think for about an hour or so. So my question, and then Putin went on to say, okay, well, if we can do that to them, then they can do that to us.
Yeah.
So what sense does it make for us to do that?
Well, and who's to say that we haven't done that already?
Right.
The parts of this that I just can't wrap my head around is that the one interviewer was like, how do you feel about, or like, how do you feel, and will you work to not to harbinge Russian hacking groups in your country? And he's like,
criminals.
He's like, what?
What kind of question is that?
What kind of question is that?
That'd be like a Russian state reporter asking Biden about BLM protesters and Antifa people.
Are you gonna let this go on in your country? He's like,
what is that? Again, get your own house in order.
And then another thing is that I don't know if the NBC guy is aware of this or not, but it is possible to tunnel your connection to appear in another country.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's what they did, but just because the connection appeared in Russia does not mean it came from there necessarily. I have a VPN from my computer. I can appear in Russia if I wanted to.
Right.
I can turn it on, and then I can get Russian news straight to my inbox if I wanted to.
And you think that people that are smart enough to hack into the State Department would be smart enough to know they have to cover their tracks.
But it's...
it makes common sense.
I don't, like... What is the objective? Okay, so like holding them accountable is not an objective.
It's meaningless.
It's a meaningless statement. Holding Russia accountable.
It's like holding China accountable.
I don't know what that means. Does that mean they're gonna play nice? It's not like again.
We're not on the playground.
The U.S. is not innocent on all this by ourselves. We got a lot of dirt. I mean, the CIA is basically it's the U.S. version of the KGB. Their mission is the same. Their tactics maybe
a little different.
Maybe not that much different.
Well, yeah, that's true.
I mean, the CIA did conduct the torture rings and under John Brennan and all that, but and they did arm ISIS and okay, yeah, but for
moving on
from that. Like what I have always said about our relationship with Russia is I said that. Because people could accuse Trump of being or playing soft to him or not being tough enough with Putin. If every single weekend they have to go break bread and drink tea, but that means that there's peace and that means that there's no dead Americans and no dead Russians and no movement of troops into
missiles
into the parts of Russia, and there's no more submarines or any other battleships moving in on the west coast of America. If that's what it takes, then I'd be for it. Be soft with them. I really don't care. Going in there and accusing the man of all this kind of stuff, what is that going to accomplish, Biden? Like, so what leverage do you have on him, and what dirt and what are you going to threaten him with?
I mean, what can he do that hasn't already been done?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand these platitudes of hold him accountable. Like, I don't.
And it's the same thing with China too. What can President Biden do that hasn't already been done or that we're already not doing? Nothing.
He's gonna be like, hey, Jack, what you're doing to Alexei, that's wrong. Stop it.
Reminds me of Corn Pop. Corn Pop was a bad dude.
Corn Pop was a bad dude, but you are worse than Corn Pop, Putin. And Kamala told me I gotta hold you accountable, so I'm speaking in a loud tone of voice. You see my Oakley's? Do you see my aviator glasses? That means I mean business. You're gonna stop it. And when Putin goes, no. Well, that's not according to the script that I was given to read. We need to no, stop this.
It was funny today as Biden was taking questions from the press pool. He went slightly off script and he said, "Oh, they're gonna get on to me for this, but just pretend I didn't ask you this question. Go ahead." And I was like, "Oh, my gosh," because he's given a list of questions he's allowed to ask and which people to ask them from. So to me, that's just like, wow, this is what it is. So, but I guess the one thing that Biden could do and that is going to do is beef up the NATO. In a statement that Biden gave in Brussels, he said, "I will make it clear that the United States' commitment to our NATO alliance and the Article 5 is rock solid. It is a sacred obligation that we have under Article 5. A sacred obligation." Now, the Article 5 obligation is that states that an attack on one is an attack on all. So, if Russia or any other country attacks another NATO so-called ally, then we are legally obligated to come in their defense. I'm sorry, but that's stupid. That's not our fight. Now, like we talked about last week with China and Taiwan, I'm sorry, but if Russia goes into the Ukraine, how does that affect our freedom, safety, and security? It doesn't. How does that affect the safety, freedom, security of the UK or France or Germany? If they're so concerned about it, then they'll take care of the problem themselves. Why does the United States, which is an ocean and half a world away, have to mitigate the problems with the Ukraine and Russia? Now, there's a whole thing that goes on with Russia and the Ukraine. It goes back a long, long time, the differences between the two countries. And Russia claims that the Ukraine has always been a part of Russia, and the people disagree. But again, what right does Germany or France have to say that Russia and Ukraine, why does Germany and France get involved in their disputes? Again, that's not your fight. And this sacred obligation, it sounds scriptural at this point. Sacred obligation? What is that? Everyone should reject this kind of statement because, I'm sorry, but that's not what we voted for. I didn't vote for our so-called sacred obligation to NATO. That's ridiculous. There's nothing sacred about it. It's a pact that was made 40-plus years ago after the Second World War and going into the Cold War about how we need to curb Russian aggression. And then in the 90s when George H.W. Bush, George Classic, said that NATO wouldn't move any further, and then they moved up NATO further to Russia. Russia was like, hey, this is what we were promised. And that's where you get so-called Russian aggression from. All Russia's actions, and this is a broad generalization, all of Russia's actions can be boiled down to the actions of NATO. It's a response to what NATO is doing. And Trump was right. Even what I think Trump was doing is that in secret he thought NATO was important, but he called it obsolete, and it was time for us to end it in an effort to get other countries to start paying more money into it, which is a good strategy, but he was right when he said that NATO should be abolished. I'm sorry, Germany, but if you're going to do pipeline deals with Russia and still ask the United States to, defend you from Russia, no. You don't get to play it both ways. So, like I said, they don't have to disband NATO, but we can just, get out of NATO. Because what goes on in Europe, it has nothing to do with the United States. This is what the United States should do, is that we're out of NATO, we're out of G7, we're out of G20, we're out of all of this stuff, right? And people say, well, that's isolationist. No, it's not. If you want to be our friend, let's be friends. Let's do some trading. Send us your stuff, we'll send you our stuff. We're cool. Hey, if you need some help with this, well, maybe we can help you out with that. But we're not going to do these entangling alliances. We're not going to do this stuff that we've been doing for years. We're not going to do, we're not going to do these crony capitalists. We're not going to do these cronyist things like with the UN and the G7, G20, and NATO. We're not doing that anymore. Because that's not fair to our taxpayers. How is it fair for the people who work in coal mines, people who drill for oil, to have their tax dollars go to pay for Germany's security in Europe? That doesn't make any sense. How is that fair? It makes more sense and is more fair for people who live in that country to pay and to produce your own security. That makes more sense. That's more fair. Wouldn't you say so, Jacob?
Yeah, I still to this day don't understand why people will support this foreign aid to any country. I don't get it. Even for like some of the progressives get it and they understand. But I don't. And how does that keep us safer? Okay, if Russia moves in on the Ukraine or whatever happens, how does sending American troops to go die in that? How does that make us any safer? Or what? Again, what freedoms are they dying for in the Ukraine? Because remember, the troops die for our freedom. And they're out there securing our freedom. So what freedoms are at stake whenever Russia moves it on the Ukraine?
Well, it's the freedoms of the people that live in the Ukraine.
No. We don't. There's no oath that a U.S. soldier takes to defend the freedoms of Ukraine. It's to protect the Constitution and it's to protect the homeland. There's no
homeland in the Ukraine.
There's no we're not defending ideals here.
Yes. So I will be interested to see the full interview because they've only released parts of it as far as I know right now, as far as the NBC interview with Putin, because I find the man fascinating. That doesn't mean it's not an endorsement of him, but I find the whole situation to be just fascinating. And I find President Biden to be the opposite. He is not fascinating. Nothing the man says is of intellectual or curious thought. But having said all that, do you have anything else you want to talk about, Jacob?
No, I'll be curious to watch the interview too. For those of you who want a little sneak peek, you can probably go back and watch his interview with Chris Wallace.
Oh yeah.
That was during Trump's presidency. It was in the wake of kind of the idea that Russia hacked the election or whatever you want to say. That Trump was installed by Putin and they were somehow they were Putin's puppet. And then you can see Chris Wallace, who he's not an idiot, but Putin just gracefully, and this is the KGB training that he does he's had. He's a master with the words and a master with body language and controlling a conversation, controlling a tone. So whenever you see a complete master communicator of all facets, of all elements of communication, you see him, and then you see Biden, who again got lost in a freaking picnic area, and then his poor wife had to come and save him.
Yeah,
this is not going to be good. Same thing would happen with President Xi Jinping. He's a master of communications too.
Well, you don't get to that level in these countries without being able to manipulate people
and indoctrinate people and to have people believe and
to play the games.
Yeah. He's KGB and he was
no one's better at it than that.
Yeah, no one. Yeah, it'd be like having a CIA operative or a CIA agent to be president. They'd be a master at manipulating other people.
Well, one would think, but I don't think the CIA has a good track record on things because I don't think Mike Pompeo would be a very good president.
He's kind of a bumbling fool.
Yeah, and I don't think James Clapper would be a good choice either because, well,
not willingly, no.
Not wittingly, yeah.
Not wittingly.
Yeah. Although maybe that's just how things work. I don't know. What do I know? But anyway, folks, thanks for listening to this here podcast.
Yes, thank you.
We'll be back again on Wednesday with the Joe Show. Then we'll be back here again Friday, and we don't know what we're going to do yet as far as the Friday show? Will it be just Jacob? Will it be both of us? We don't know.
Hey.
So you'll just have to tune in to find out.
Yeah, tune in to find out.
But until then, go check out the Teespring store. Go get you a T-shirt. Check out the Twitters. Check out the show email. Check out Jacob's Substack. He's cooking up another good one, folks. What else?
If you enjoy what you listen to, considering
join the website. Become a Patreon subscriber.
You get the show a day early.
Get the show a day early. That is probably the best benefit that you would get. Let's see what else. This Thursday, yours truly and I will.
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
Yeah.
I was sorry. Next Thursday.
Big announcement.
Here in it's in McDonough, right?
Big announcement.
Big announcement here in McDonough.
Some big things are happening.
Right. We will be at the Henry County Mises Caucus meetup at the Buffalo Wild Wings in McDonough. So if you want to come by and say hello and join the party and check it out, please. Jacob and I will be there.
Yeah.
It'll be a good time, and then we'll have a big announcement coming up with that involving the two of us. So we will leave you in suspense. So so until then, happy birthday, President Donald Trump. I was going to do a Marilyn Monroe thing at Jack Kennedy's birthday, but Jacob told me not to.
I've been weird.
I've been very weird. But until then, folks, thanks for listening. Peace.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.